forced to stay put and behold his future, a dark emptiness foreshadowed in the bird's dead eyes. When he caught sight of his fate, his arms began to shake violently and a bellow tore through his lips. At that very same moment, while your daddy's howl devoured the dusk and his eyes pounded away at the darkness, you, flying from your mama's womb, croaked loudly. In that departing light, your eyes also popped with the truth of what your daddy saw. Beaked lips screeching into nothing. I, Icy Sparks, can't recollect when I was born, but I still remember my daddy, how all his life his eyes bulged forward when he talked, like a dam holding back a flood of words, corking everything inside, so afraid he was of the vacancy left behind should all his thoughts be spoken. I remember how he'd squat in front of the country store, resting on his haunches, talking so quiet that friends would lean over to hear him. The closer they came, the softer his voice grew until suddenly his eyes would protrude like two round stop signs, signaling to friends that they were too near, that he needed to be alone. He had to silence the rumble of dynamite and the thump of dead birds. He needed time to rearrange his insides and summon some quiet. Muffling a scream, he'd simply swallow and create a new thought. Then another shy sentence would leak through his lips. My legacy was come too rightly. The good Lord charters a path for each child, and no use comes from fighting against it. My mama died from kidney poison 2 weeks after she birthed me. From those little green crab apples, she created Icy, the frog child from Icy Creek, and an indigestion so troubled that it gnawed away her system and turned her water as yellow as my eyes. Matani told me that before she died, her urine was the color of acorn squash. "Child, them eyes of yours is her gift to you," Matani said. "Your mama saw the golden light and sent it back to you. The minute your sweet mama passed into heaven, your eyes turned yeller." With his eyes popped wide, my daddy died. But unlike Mama, he didn't see the golden light, just the final scream descending. Patani found him near Icy Creek. The tin bucket was overturned, its handle clutched in his left hand. The blackberries scattered the length of his leg, his skin puffed up from the stings. The bee, so consumed with rage, had plunged through his leather boots and bitten the tops of his feet, or so the coroner said. Even so, I remember only his eyes, iced surprise and anticipated horror, saying more to a 4-year-old than those 1,000 pinpricks that covered his body. I was born a frog child from Icy Creek. From my father, I inherited the fear that resided in his coal-black eyes, and from this fear, I've gained wisdom. Fear placed books in my hands and led me to search for the answers. From my mama, I received lush hair, the color of goldenrod, and yeller ochre eyes. My mama gifted me with memory, asked me to read the book of Job. Afterward, I'll recite it back to you word for word. From my mama, I grew to see the world through hope-filled eyes, though hope did not come easy. On June 10th, I turned 10. The Saturday after my birthday, the eye blinking and popping began. We were eating breakfast. Matani was sitting across from me. Patani was at the head of the table. To this day, I can remember my first urge, so intense it was, like an itch needing to be scratched. I could feel little invisible rubber bands fastened to my eyelids, pulled tight through my brain and attached to the back of my head. Every few seconds, a crank behind my skull turned slowly. With each turn, the rubber bands yanked harder, and the space inside my head grew smaller. My grandmother was studying me, making sure my face had been washed, my hair combed and fastened on each side with the blue barrette she'd bought me for my birthday. While Matani studied me, I stared straight ahead and glued my eyes, growing tighter with each second, on the brown fuzz above her lip. "Icy," she said, sipping her coffee. "What are you staring at?" "Them hairs above your lip," I blurted, extending my arm and pointing at her face. "They're turning..."